Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh, and if this is your first time here, this is something we do on the channel called Physical Media Friday, where I basically just talk about any of the new physical media boutique releases that I may have gotten over the last couple weeks or whatever. I'm constantly picking stuff up, so this is sort of just like a pop-in hangout where I talk to you about the movies that I picked up recently. In this video, I'm talking specifically about the 4 films that I picked up during the Criterion online flash sale that they just had recently. This video might be coming out a while after that actual sale happened. It's probably going to come out in the midst of the Barnes & Noble sale that everyone I know is excited about. But anyway, yeah, without further ado, let's talk about the 4 films that I got during that flash sale, starting with Darius Marder's The Sound of Metal. The Sound of Metal came out in 2019, and it was one of my favorite films of that year. It might have actually been my favorite film. I was really, really rooting for Riz Ahmed to be the front runner for Best Actor. I think his performance in this film is incredible. If you haven't seen it, it's about a drummer in sort of a metal band or a punk band that starts to lose his hearing and starts to go deaf. This movie hit pretty close to home for me. I'm someone who's had a lot of hearing problems throughout my whole life, a lot of ear problems, had a lot of surgeries on them. And so watching this was a little bit like a glimpse into my potential future if I didn't start to get all of that stuff under control. And yeah, just a truly beautiful film. I believe it was co-written by Derek Cianfrance, who is a filmmaker that I'm whose work I am in love with. If you haven't seen any of Derek Cianfrance's films, definitely check out Place Beyond the Pines or Blue Valentine, or most recently his film Roof Man. There was also a great HBO show that he made with Mark Ruffalo, which the name escapes me. It's kind of a long title, but it'll show up on the screen somewhere. But anyway, yeah, Sound of Metal is absolutely incredible. Darius Marder, who I believe was a cinematographer or is a cinematographer, and this is his sort of directorial debut, and it's it's phenomenal if you haven't seen it. It's got a great Olivia Cooke performance as well, and the actor Paul Raci is also great. He got an Oscar nomination as well. The film, I believe, won 2 Academy Awards, and they were mostly sound awards, which makes sense. The sound in this is incredible. It really immerses you in the feeling of losing your hearing and becoming hearing impaired. Really, absolutely stunning stuff. Let's open it up real quick and see what's inside. So right in there, we get the disc and we get nice booklet. Let's run through the booklet real quick. Love the text on there. Whenever I'm doing these Criterion hauls, I try to do a mixture of a few different things. I like to do a newer movie. I like to do an older movie. I usually try to do like a movie from different decades. And then I also try to do a blind buy, and we'll get to what my blind buy was in this one. But this was a newer one that I knew that I wanted, as it was truly one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. And it's one of these fold out essays. It's an essay called Throbbing Eternity by Roxana Haddadi. And on the other side, we get a photo of Riz Ahmed and credits and about the transfer and special thanks and all that. Yeah, I'm excited to give this a read. And I haven't watched this movie since 2019 or 2020, whenever I ended up seeing it. But truly, if you haven't seen it, it's absolutely worth a watch. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, up next, I have a film from the 90s that I saw recently for the first time. So this year, I've been partaking in the Criterion Challenge. You can check out my videos on those if you want to know more. One of the categories in the Criterion Challenge, I believe it was soundtrack, was I think the one I watched this for. And I'm, of course, talking about Nancy Savoca's film Dogfight, starring River Phoenix and Lily Taylor. I saw this for the first time a few months ago, and it absolutely charmed me to death. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was wonderfully acted. And the story is just sort of heartwarming. It starts out rather infuriating. The concept of the movie is about these Marines that are about to go off to fight in Vietnam, do this little game, this little party called the Dogfight, where they try to bring to a bar the least attractive woman, and the one who brings the least attractive woman ends up winning a pot of money. And it's really cruel, but River Phoenix brings Lily Taylor's character and actually starts to fall for her, actually starts to befriend her. Yeah, it's just a truly kind of beautiful love story. And I've mentioned on videos in the past my admiration for River Phoenix. He's someone that I just hold very dearly in my heart. I've said it before. I'll tell this story however many times I need to, but he was really my first brush with the concept of death, and especially his celebrity death. I loved Explorers. I loved his brief stint as Indiana Jones. And then I saw Stand By Me, and I was obsessed with Stand By Me. Stand By Me is one of my favorite films of all time. And then I got a little bit older, and I thought to myself, well, I wonder where River Phoenix has been. I haven't seen any new movies with him, and only to realize that he had died before I was even born. And it really made me sort of yearn for what life would have been like, or what cinema would have been like had River Phoenix not died. So I've been making a point to try to watch all of his films. And Dogfight was a blind spot for me for a while, but it was one that I wanted to watch for a long time. And I'm so glad that I did, and I'm so glad that I now own it. Why don't we take a look inside here? We get a nice classic Criterion disc in there with the Criterion logo, and we get this booklet, and we'll take a brief look into the booklet. So we get a lot of stills from the movie on the front and the back, and then inside, I think we have another fold-out essay, which, again, I've said it before, not a huge fan of the fold-out. Prefer a booklet style. This essay is called In Love and War by Christina Newland, and I'm excited to give this a read. So yeah, I do think that this is almost somewhat of a forgotten hidden gem of the 90s. I don't hear a whole lot of people talk about it, and Nancy Savoca, from what I can tell, never really released anything that might have been on this level. I think her debut film was the one that was able to get her to make this. And then since then, it seems like there's quite a bit of a drop off, both in product and in quality potentially. But I'll have to check out more of her stuff. But this is truly a hidden gem of the 90s. Definitely check it out if you have not seen it. I got to take a quick coffee break. I'm going to have to reheat that. That got a little cold. Up next is the debut feature film from one of my new favorite filmmakers of all time. I put out a video about this guy. His name is Juzo Itami. So I am, of course, talking about The Funeral. So a lot of people know Juzo Itami because of his movie Tampopo. And in that video that I made about Juzo Itami, the basic premise was supposed to be this guy is so much more than Tampopo. This guy made 10 films throughout his entire life. He got into filmmaking pretty late in life. I think he was in his 50s when he made The Funeral in 1984. And he is just sort of a one-of-a-kind singular filmmaker. Once I finished watching all of his movies, I made that video, I went on Reddit and I started asking people like, hey, do you know of any other directors who are similar to Juzo Itami? I really want to keep living in this world because I watched all 10 films and reached the point where Juzo Itami met his untimely death, and I just felt like I needed more in this world. And people were like, he's kind of a one of a kind. He's kind of a pretty singular filmmaker, and there aren't a whole lot of people doing it like him. And it all starts with The Funeral. I mean, The Funeral is such a dazzling debut. It's a lot more quiet and meditative and slow moving than a lot of his other work that you may know, like Tampopo or Supermarket Woman or A Taxing Woman or Woman in Witness Protection. But it is undeniably really kind of profound, and it is moving, and it is also simultaneously this weird blend of comedy that I haven't really seen anywhere else. The comedy really is subtle. It really is heartwarming, and it's so slice of life. Essentially, this film is just a depiction of the death of a patriarch of a family and in Japan, and the way that they have to carry out the funeral rites and all of the rituals that go into a proper Japanese funeral. And it is just absolutely gorgeous to look at. The performances are incredible, and it kind of has something to say about ritual and traditions and the things that we do to make ourselves feel at peace with the death of a loved one. And just in general, the things that we do on a daily basis or the things that we do without even thinking of them. There's a point in this movie that always sticks out to me whenever I'm talking about it. And there is sort of like a service happening where there is a a priest of some sort of spiritual figure who is reading something aloud, and everyone is kneeling and they're looking at this service. Um, and Juzo Itami does this thing where he does this long tracking shot along the feet of all of the people who are kneeling. And they're all kind of like squirming and they're shifting and they're cracking their toes. And it's almost like this subtle question mark of like, why do we do this? You know, why do we sit in this position even though it's uncomfortable for all of us? And I feel like that sort of thing is all over this movie. The question of why do we do this? Isn't this a little strange? It's almost like if you were an alien and you were observing a funeral, you might ask yourself, why do we do this? But anyway, yeah, absolutely gorgeous movie and really funny and really heartfelt, really human, and would go on to prove that Juzo Itami was a filmmaker from the beginning that had so much to say about life and about this weird world that we live in. So anyway, let's take a look at the contents inside. What I really like about this one is that it feels kind of heavy, and I could tell that the booklet is going to have a lot for me to dig into. There we have the disc and the booklet, and we get some cool artwork on the front and back of the booklet right there. Yeah, look at that. That's really cool. And inside, it looks like we have a whole table of contents. I love when we get multiple essays in a Criterion release. There is Juzo Itami right there. And okay, so let's look at this table of contents. We have the cast and credits. We have an essay called At a Loss by Pico Iyer. I think that's how you pronounce it. We have From the Funeral Diary by Juzo Itami. So it's actually stuff from a diary that Juzo Itami kept. And then we have something called Everything About Him Can Be Found in the Funeral, which is the actor Tsutomu Yamazaki on Juzo Itami, writing about Juzo Itami and their working relationship, and then some stuff about the restoration. But truly, I cannot wait to read all of this stuff. Obviously, when I made that video, I had to do a ton of deep dive into Juzo Itami and his life and his work, and read a lot of people's think pieces about him and read a lot about his life and his history. He was an actor for a long time before he became a filmmaker himself. He was a bit of a TV personality. He did a lot of commercials. So he was a man who was in the world of storytelling long before he became a filmmaker himself. And it is a bit of a mission of mine that I am trying to spread the gospel of Juzo Itami, because so many people don't know that he had more films out there that are as good or better than films like Tampopo, films like The Funeral. The Funeral is up there in my favorite Juzo Itami movies. But even Tampopo doesn't crack the top 3 for me. I would say that films like Supermarket Woman or A Taxing Woman's Return or A Taxing Woman or Woman in Witness Protection. I even thought films like A Quiet Life were pretty spectacular. He's just got so many great films, and he made 10 of them in his lifetime. And all 10 of them, I think, should be compiled in a box set. I am begging Criterion or someone to put together all 10 of his films, similar to what they just did with Wes Anderson. I think the Juzo Itami deserves the same treatment, in my opinion, because the amount of people who don't know who Juzo Itami is kind of baffling to me. But anyway, let's keep looking through this booklet. We get a lot of photos from the set and from the movie. I'm really excited to go through this diary of Juzo Itami while he was making The Funeral. It almost feels sort of similar to the Do the Right Thing Criterion set, where they have a lot of like field notes from Spike Lee as he was writing the film. There's a great photo of Juzo Itami right there with a cat. It says here, the following is excerpted from an interview with the funeral actor and Juzo Itami regular Tsutomu Yamazaki that originally appeared in the book Itami Juzo no Aiga, the films of Juzo Itami. I'm going to have to find that book. Hopefully it's available, because I'd love to read it. Juzo Itami became a bit of an obsession of mine this year, as evidenced by the long-ass video that I made and about me talking about how I'm trying to get his films out there into the world so that people could talk about him more. And it all starts with The Funeral. This is absolutely incredible. I'm going to put it next to my copy of Tampopo, and hopefully I could find the rest of his films in physical form, because he's just a one-of-a-kind filmmaker and slowly climbing the ranks of one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. And last but not least, we get to my blind buy. This is somewhat of a blind buy because it's a movie that everyone talks about, and it's a film I feel like I knew about before I'd ever seen it. But as someone who has had a pretty up and down relationship with Stanley Kubrick, I was a little hesitant to get this, but it is also part of my Criterion challenge. So I decided to get Barry Lyndon. Now, this isn't the 4K version of Barry Lyndon. This is just the Blu-ray edition. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to spend the extra money on the 4K for a blind buy of a movie that I wasn't sure I was even going to like to begin with. Because, well, this movie takes place in the 17th century in Europe. And I got to say that that's not really my favorite time period or setting for films. So I was already a little bit dubious about this. And I did just watch this the other night. And I got to say, I was a little mixed on it. Can't say that I loved it. I can understand why it's a classic among cinephiles and why people seem to enjoy this. It is an absolutely stunning looking movie. I think the performances are great, but I found myself quite honestly pretty bored through most of it and really kind of scratching my head asking myself, why are we being told this story? Why did Stanley Kubrick want to tell this story in particular? If you don't know, this is a historical drama about a man who is, I guess, on the run from authorities after a duel with an English officer. And it sort of just tracks his life as he climbs the ranks into English aristocracy. And the performance by Ryan O'Neal is pretty great. I was a little shocked to see that he wasn't nominated for Best Actor during this year. Although when I looked at the other nominees, I was like, oh, I guess it kind of makes sense. A lot of those other nominees are kind of bona fide. But anyway, this movie kind of just didn't really do it for me. I would kind of put it lower in my rankings of a lot of Stanley Kubrick's works that I've seen. There are only a few that I haven't seen so far. I haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut, haven't seen Paths of Glory, haven't seen Spartacus, The Killing I haven't seen, but all of the rest I think I've seen the rest of them. But again, truly stunning cinematography, sound design, all of that stuff. The fact that they use like a NASA lens specifically engineered to be modified to fit onto their camera. And in order for them to shoot in super low light, they were able to shoot at an f 0.7. All of that's pretty remarkable. All of that is sort of incidental to the movie itself, because the movie itself I felt to be kind of a slog to get through. Felt like you could have easily shaved off about an hour of this movie, and it would have been maybe a little bit more enthralling. But I think I was just missing that feeling of tension. I didn't really feel any amount of tension throughout the movie, except for the moments where there are duels in the film. The ending, I do think, makes it somewhat worth it, and you kind of get a little bit more of a thrust near the end of the movie. But overall, this was a bit of a tough one for me to sit through. But I'm glad that I watched it as someone who admires Stanley Kubrick oftentimes more than I necessarily enjoy Kubrick. This was at least something that I was excited to watch, and I'm glad that I did watch it. But anyway, let's take a look inside here. So this is a 2-disc set. On the second disc, you have special features. There's Ryan O'Neal right there playing Barry Lyndon, and we can see him again on the back cover. All right, so in here, table of contents, we have cast and credits. We have an essay called Time Regained by Jeffrey O'Brien. We have an essay called The Look of Barry Lyndon, Photographing Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, an interview with John Alcott, the cinematographer. So we have these essays, and then we just sort of have like a technical essay that says 2 special lenses for Barry Lyndon, how the stringent demands of a purist perfectionist filmmaker led to the development of 2 valuable new cinematographic tools by Ed DiGiulio, who I believe was one of the people who helped them modify the lenses to get them onto the cameras. He is the president of Cinema Products Corporation. I did watch some of these special features on here, and the special features gave me a little bit more appreciation for the film after I watched it. But again, there is no real accounting for the actual feeling of sitting within a movie, and I don't think that we should be stigmatizing the concept of being bored watching a movie. I do think that it's perfectly okay to say that this is a slow-moving film where not a whole lot necessarily happens. The tension isn't really as palpable as in some of his other work, but it's still a beautiful film to look at, and it is something that I could admire without saying that I fully enjoyed. So that's going to do it for this edition of Physical Media Friday. Let me know if you are interested in seeing any of these films and if this video has inspired you to pick up any of these 4 releases. And let me know what I should pick up next during the November Criterion Barnes & Noble sale. I've got a few gift cards from people. My birthday just passed not that long ago, so I'm excited to see what I'm going to pick up. I don't know what I'm going to pick up. I'm going to start building my list pretty soon. But anyway, yeah, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on this channel. Don't forget to follow me on Letterboxd so you can see what I'm watching, when I'm watching it, and I'll see you all next time.